Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Shredded Cels podcast, special edition. I'm your host, Alex Schmitz. This episode, we are talking about episodes of the Fooly Cooly, or like they'd say it, it's Fooly Cooly.
Your face during that was perfect.
It was very great. And no, actually, that was Matt Lunn giving the introduction to this very special episode of Shredded Cels. I am your host, Alex Schmitz. We have Matt Lunn on my left here.
Howdy, howdy.
And Kenneth McNulty on my right.
Don't get hit by Vespas.
Now, some of you may be wondering, what is this Shredded Cels special episode? Well,
What could it be?
I know, right?
Fireworks.
Such a suspense. Well, basically, last week we did a podcast about Fooly Cooly and Korra and all sorts of fun
Which
and
I was
wonderful
absent,
things.
and obviously, since the other podcasteers don't know how to talk about an anime, they needed me to come back to take the stage so I could improve on what they could not say. I'm so special. I'm on a pedestal, folks. A high, tall pedestal. Ready to fall down, but that's okay. I'm up on high.
Man, you are on fire tonight. I don't know what is going on.
There's fewer people here. I'm going to take the spotlight, folks.
He's unleashed.
Apparently, yes. Kenneth and Matt were not on last week's episode, and we got into a good discussion about Fooly Cooly, but I wanted to do a special episode where we go more in depth. So it's not a normal episode. We're not going to discuss about anything else. We're just going to go through the show Fooly Cooly episode by episode and analyze it for what we think about it and what sort of second layers of meaning might be behind it and all those sorts of things.
Let's get in Captain Nemo's submarine, the Nautilus, and we'll go down, down, down. 20,000 leagues underneath the sea.
That was really good when they had it in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, by the way.
Ooh, really?
Good movie.
Really? I've read the comic, so I would not know how the movie is.
I have no clue what you guys are talking about, but that's okay.
Okay, for another time.
Yeah, I'm very absent from a lot of things in life.
Understandable. Well, I mean, you're on fire tonight once again, so compensate. That's the That's what.
There we go. All right. So, yes. So we're going to be discussing Fooly Cooly today, and you guys can look forward to next week when we'll be discussing many other things such as Ninja Scroll and Sword for Truth and Tron Uprising and Korra and all sorts of wonderful things for our season finale. But But that's a teaser for next week. So, Fooly Cooly. It's a show created by Gainax, for those who don't know, and was it Production IG?
Production IG took most of the animation. Well, obviously, they worked with Gainax to work with it. You know, Gainax was the main story writers. And what's actually really interesting is if you do look at the design elements of this series, it screams a lot of other TV series. Mostly the series Gurren Lagann. You can find a lot of the techniques they used in Fooly Cooly reused in Gurren Lagann. So, pretty impressed.
When I watched Gurren Lagann, because I had seen Fooly Cooly previously to seeing Gurren Lagann, I sort of saw Gurren Lagann as a spiritual successor in many ways to Fooly Cooly, since it is done by the same studio and it involves a sort of a similar thing with the craziness and the robots and the fighting.
Yes,
action.
but I liked Gurren Lagann so much better. And no, for those who were thinking it's because of Yoko, no. That's why a lot of people like that show. But focused on Fooly Cooly, like I said, especially with some of the explosions, one of the famous things that Gainax does, even in, I think it is in Ava, is, and you should check this next time you watch another Gainax show, is whenever there's a big explosion, you have paintbrush. I think they said it was paintbrush, but, dots or freckles that are just randomly moving about the screen. Like when an explosion happens.
I thought you said that those were supposed to be sort of like the dust particles that you'd get on an animation cell back in the day.
That's
supposed
actually
to replicate.
in a special it's a extra in one of the Gainax the Gurren Lagann DVDs when they go into Gainax and they talk about some of the features, and that's something that they've done, and that's actually, I think, a trademark Gainax thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it might be done in other areas, I just haven't noticed, but I've noticed it significantly from Gainax, and definitely with this series too. And the other thing I noticed, spirals. You notice that, near the end especially when the giant hand, or I know we might as well just jump around. In episode 6 of Fooly Cooly, spoilers, when the core has to go into the hand, there's rotation, there's some spiral.
Well, it's more like circles than spirals.
Okay, but the point is you can really link Gurren Lagann and Fooly Cooly as far as their animation styles very closely, especially like Jeremy mentioned. Did you guys mention that on the podcast about the...
No, we did not. Jeremy Zajac, who's another member of our podcast, pointed out... Yes, he is. Pointed out that the robot in episode 2 of Fooly Cooly resembles a gunman from Gurren Lagann. It's not like big, but it is sort of there. So it's an interesting little tidbit of information for...
I'm sorry, Kenneth. I'm the animation major here, so that's why I notice all these details.
Trust me, that's good, because some people don't. We need people like that do, so we can break shows apart and actually criticize them. Because I'm never like that. I can't do things quite like that.
Yep.
Right.
So let's start off with episode 1.
Very good episode.
Indeed. I don't know, when I've rewatched the show twice now. I saw it the first time in this anime class I took in fall quarter, and then
it was 5 minutes ago.
No, I said I've rewatched it twice. If you listen to me, Matt. No, and then I watched it a second time when I had to do a paper on it for that exact same anime class, and that's where I found like a lot more of the in-depth like analysis and stuff. And then I rewatched it the third time in preparation for this episode and noticed a lot of things about the animation and all that. But watching it for the third time, like that first episode, kind of like you've said to me in the past, Matt, the dialogue there in the scenes before Haruko shows up, it's kind of like awkward to watch almost.
Well, even when she shows up, like my major problem with that very beginning is obviously there is a reason why it's done. It's just it's too simplistic. It's just like Taku, and then they kiss and they roll around, la 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 la, and then I just don't like and then the stop and puts her hand or rotates her. It's I guess my major problem as the series as a whole was the fact that there is I don't know. I think this series would benefit if I would enjoy it more if it was in a group sitting. Like if I was able to watch it in a group. I think I could have bounced some ping and pong energy off of people.
Ping and pong energy.
I've never heard that term before.
That's a good metaphor.
But I can see that because obviously it's a show that's very silly and it's
watching it alone like that. Like I said, I thought the show was decent, but if I had. And I don't really have a goal to rewatch it, but if someone's like, hey, let's rewatch it together, and, you're kind of making little puns at it here and there, I think it'd be more enjoyable. Because, like I said, one thing I look for when I watch stuff is I'm that plot guy. I want plot.
Well, that's the best part. Like, the first time I ever saw it was, like, 3 or 4... whenever it was first, like, released, it was just showing on, like, late night on, I think, Adult Swim or something. Mm-hmm. And my friend's like, have you heard of the show Fooly Cooly? I'm like, no. And he was like, dude, you gotta check it out. It's, like, hilarious. So I was watching it, and, like, I just watched it with him, so it was, like, the whole group setting idea. And we saw, I think, at least 1 through 4. We saw mixed match episodes, but I managed to see them all. And every time, we're just like, what is happening? And we were laughing so hard. That's why I've always liked the series, because it's really upbeat to me in the fact that I'm always just, like, either laughing or not really sad about anything.
Yeah, I would agree. Like when we were watching it for the first time in class, like that sequence where Haruko enters the show for the first time and like there's all this craziness going on. She hits him with the moped and then they do the slow-mo kiss and then they make the fourth wall breaking joke about how it's tough to do slow-mo kissing, and they're in the trailer and everything. It's like it's just so wacky and out there. And then they get to the scene where they go into a manga style in the first episode. Like I love the comedic moments like that in the show.
Yeah.
One thing I digged from this show was a lot of the pulp culture references.
Yeah, they're like the Ava references and Lupin. And
I loved the Lupin references because they made a reference, especially he's like, oh, you like the red? What's this jacket? And it's like, oh, you like it? It's the Lupin whatever. And goes into the whole, mentions the Castle of Cagliostro, which is one of my favorite Miyazaki films. He mentions it, so it's like, oh. And, they actually went into detail about how the creator actually prefers the red shirt or the red jacket over the green one. It's like, I never knew that. I don't know if it's true or not, but or like when they were naming off the bands, like they named not Panic at the Disco. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, Paul McCartney, obviously Jimi Hendrix. Who else did they mention? But the point is they mentioned a lot of, if you check the Japanese subtitles, it's all these Japanese people, and it's like, who are you?
Yeah.
But to Americanize it, which they did perfectly, they made all this American pop culture references in it, and it's like, yes, that's what makes it work. Especially when the father's talking to the school teacher about how he killed his pet hamster back in grade school and whatnot.
Yeah.
He even says, I think its name was Hamtaro.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So
It's a lot of little things.
Yeah. I really like the bit where Naota is yelling at his dad for having Kanti, the robot, outside the house, and he goes in like this long diatribe about like the psychology of robots, and Haruko's like, what is he talking about? He's like, oh, he wrote a book about like the metaphysical meanings of Ava or something like that.
yes, that.
And it's like, that's kind of funny because obviously Gainax is the people who did Ava.
So I liked all the little references. I enjoyed those. That actually made me smile.
I still think the funniest character in the whole show, I can't remember his name for some reason, but who's the guy, the investigator, something with the really big eyebrows?
Big eyebrows.
Yeah,
Just-
Commander Amuro.
The way they played with his eyebrows the entire series, my friends and I were like, what? Because we're like, that guy's eyebrows are huge, and everybody in the show is like, dude, what the heck's wrong with your eyebrows? Like flying off and stuff.
But when they're off, he really does look like a monkey.
He does.
Yeah.
I just loved that.
Which makes me wonder, it's like, are we, if you want to go into deep, themes and stuff, it's like, are we just monkeys, but we have eyebrows?
That is true. I mean, you could think of it like that.
I guess it's possible.
Good deep thinking.
Yes.
Exactly. So
Yes.
this series has a lot to it. Like, I could dissect little chunks and pieces and eat it up, but I don't know, like, even though I said it was decent, just because I wasn't impressed, there's a lot of stuff I did like about it. It's just, like, those first 3 episodes, in my opinion, especially episode 2 and 3, where the plot was it's like, okay, I can see this, and then
Really?
4.
Now you say that, but really, at least in my mind, I've heard people say that they like episodes 1 through 3 the best because
Yes.
the first 3 and the last 3 are definitely very different in how they approach things. But you say you're a plot guy, and yet it's 4 through 6 that deals with the plots with Amuro and Adamus and all this other stuff.
Okay,
all
maybe
the
I shouldn't say
backstory to
plot.
it.
I should say more of the story.
I
mean, they're very close, but
Yeah, there's I don't know. I would definitely say like episode 3, if you ask me, is the most important of those first 3 because it deals with Nina Mori.
because what was episode 4?
Episode 4 was the one where he has to swing the bat, and
Like, I liked the idea, but it just
didn't like it. I don't know. Well,
and then their teacher is annoying. I can say that.
well, she's supposed to be.
I
That's
know,
the
but I
idea.
loved that. She's like, you got to use chopstick to teach your old people so they don't, get mentally retarded. And
Did she really say
I
that?
don't think she said it to that extreme, but
But nonetheless,
but to keep their memory from
from dementia,
yeah.
to put it like that.
Nice. All right. Yeah, let's think. Does anyone have any other thoughts about episode 1? Obviously, the way I see it, the whole show is very much a coming of age story for Naota, and we get when, like we talked about a little bit about Haruko's entrance into the show, and it's obvious that when Naota is sort of just starting to go through puberty and sort of struggling with his feelings for Mamimi because he confronts her on the bridge and is asking like, do you like my brother or do you like me, basically?
And you kind of get that answer in the end.
Well, yeah, you do.
Because when
and then obviously Haruko's sort of entrance into the show is sort of symbolic of the entrance of puberty and like all this crazy eccentric confusion, sexual tension and all this stuff into Naota's life.
But the one thing I loved was the comic panel when they went to comic panel.
The manga panel, yeah.
It's like Fooly Cooly, and it's like.
It's so fast paced and ridiculous.
And I loved because in that It was either the 5th or the 6th. They go back to doing
the
that.
6th episode.
And
yeah.
the dad's like, when they first told us when we were animating the first episode, they're like, you're doing too much animation. You need too expensive. So then we're doing our regular thing, and they're like, oh, now you're being too lazy. So it's like, you know what? Fine, we're going to put the comic panel back in. And that's why they did it.
Well, I think he Kamon, the father, even makes a joke about the fact doing manga is exhausting and it's a lot of work, it costs lots of money, and they're like, there's people in the background wheeling the manga panels away. I love it when they break the fourth wall like that.
Well, that's my favorite thing in any series. And talking to the viewer, you're kind of like, what? I mean, if they do it too much, obviously it's not a good thing. But when they do it and it's tasteful like that, or it's supposed to be funny and ridiculous, with Fooly Cooly, it works perfectly.
But see, that's almost my favorite character is the father.
Really?
Because he's just out there.
Yes. Well, what I find interesting about the father is that, the whole idea is that Naota has no responsible adults in his life. His father is crazy, his teacher is crazy, his grandpa is crazy.
Yeah, his grandfather gets Hustler.
Exactly. And so his father is really immature, but then he shows glimpses of being being a more mature and more insightful adult than any of the others in the show, like in episode 4 when he Naota resurrects him with water, and he's talking about how Haruko used him and how it was a bad thing, and he's kind of serious. And then in episode 6 when he tells the story about the hamster and is basically saying Naota is enjoying his freedom and stuff like that, he shows some insight that I think is sort of surprising for him when all the rest of the show he's really crazy and silly and ridiculous.
Yep. I mean, like I said, he's a pretty cool character.
Yeah,
Definitely.
All right, and then there was one other thing. Oh, and then in one thing I find interesting, obviously in episode 1, we get the first of the robots coming out of his head, and the big awesome battle there on the bridge at the end. And I believe when Haruko comes in and hits Kanti with the guitar, freeze frames there, and Naota says something for that one moment, she looked like my brother, which is obviously this, because throughout the show it's sort of hinted and said that he looks up to Tasuku, I think that's his name. He looks up to his brother as the sort of the model ideal of what an adult is and maturity and all that, since he doesn't have any adults in his life that are like that. He looks up to his older brother who's away and everything. So he sort of sees Haruko that way when she comes in and saves him, which is obviously very interesting, sort of foreshadowing what's going to happen later in the show. Mm-hmm. And also to note is when the robot first starts coming out of his head, obviously whenever that happens, Haruko's bracelet starts rattling because it's tuned into the power of Adamus and all that, although we don't know that in the first episode. But I believe when it happens is right when Naota is talking with Mamimi on the bridge, and he basically tells her that his brother, has a girlfriend in America.
Yep.
And when that happens, she's talking about, oh, I'm gonna overflow or whatever, and of course, anytime that there's sort of sexual confusion or some sort of emotional
The
moment,
horn comes out.
What?
The horn in his head
Yes.
gets bigger.
Yeah, whenever there's
So, man.
whenever there's any sort of emotional trauma in Naota's life, that's when his NO channel activates.
It even
in the
happens
robots.
in the 5th or 6th episode when they're about to go in the love hotel, and of course, it comes out the back of his head and it goes right in between her legs through her skirt.
But they weren't going to go to a love hotel; they were going to a restaurant.
It was a restaurant.
Yes. Where did you get that?
Love hotel.
Listen, he likes Mamimi, but he's 12 or 13. Okay.
Yeah, I know. That was my major problem. It's he was trying to be, I don't know, 12-year-old. I don't know. I think 12-year-old's a little too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's right. I don't know.
Well,
I don't remember my 12-year-old days.
Yeah, block this out. After
Yes.
a while.
interesting. Well, we'll get to the relationship between Mamimi and Naota a little bit more in the second episode, since episode 2 is pretty much
I thought we were already in the episode.
No, we were talking about episode 1.
Oh.
Episode 2 is the one that's primarily focused on Mamimi, you know, for the most part. We get a little bit of explanation. Haruko talking about how Naota's brain is missing and all that.
Nah.
But Yeah, what do you guys think of that? Because one thing I noticed while I was watching the show the third time is like there are moments where it's like really slow and there's like no dialogue and the animation there are like long pan shots and things like that. And then you get moments where like during episode 2, there's that like 3-minute montage of Naota explaining what the like Black Flame game is, that Mamimi keeps playing, the little video game. And he goes into depth about that, and there's all these images flashing on screen and audio in the background. It's like an information overload, and then it goes back to being normal again.
You're right. I don't know. Why did I like that episode?
Why did I like it?
I don't know. This series, I don't know. It's a bit of a, it's a question mark.
Yeah. Well,
it's interesting.
The thing I find the most interesting about episode 2 is, although one thing that kind of bothers me is like, I love it. Obviously they switch animation styles like regularly within the show.
They went to South Park for like,
that was awesome. But there's one animation switch in the second episode, you guys might remember, where they're waiting for Conti to come back with like the groceries and the porn magazines and all that. And it's this, and they've got their names
all like blurry.
Underneath. Yeah, it's sort of a deformed looking style. I've seen it before, but it just sort of looks weird. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of that little bit of animation, but then you get that awesome shot of Conti coming down from the sky, all in colors and everything. But the most interesting thing to me, at least, about episode 2 is how when we hear about, obviously there's been someone has been going and committing arson in all these different places or whatever, and it's heavily hinted that Mamimi is the one that did that and that she burnt down her school, when she was young because she hated it and all that. And what's interesting is that, she was in the burning school back when she was, a kindergartner or whatever, and then Tasku comes in and saves her. That's what we see in that little flashback bit. And it's sort
Which is the main character's brother.
Right, the older brother. And what I find interesting is it's never explicitly said in the show, but sort of implied that, like, Tasku never really was in a relationship with Mamimi. He just saved her that one time from the fire, and all of a sudden she sort of idolized him as like, oh, he's my boyfriend, and we're boyfriend and girlfriend, and we're best friends, and everything's gonna be great, and she sort of attached herself to this strong-willed person because she's sort of weak-willed herself. But then obviously Tasku, really doesn't care for her and goes off to America and gets himself a new girlfriend or whatever. And then so Mamimi sort of attaches herself to other people who are weak-willed, like Naota, and she has her nickname for him, Takun, which is obviously a nickname that she used for Tasku, Naota's brother. So she's basically Naota is her replacement for.
But she attaches that to anything, even the weird dog.
Exactly.
She's like animals, yeah.
Exactly. She attaches it to the cat too. The cat's name is Takun. The point is she sort of preys on these things that are weak-willed, like Naota is at the beginning, like the cat or the...
Which I want to talk about eventually, the whole ending of how, she leaves and becomes a photographer, but the picture she calls it Fooly Cooly. Mm-hmm. And I love that picture of him up on there with the guitar.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's an iconic picture. When I was watching the director's commentary, he said that, because obviously within the 6th episode, once again, Kamon breaks the 4th one. It was like, oh, Naota, you're the protagonist of the show. You must know what Fooly Cooly means. He's like, I don't know what Fooly Cooly means. And they leave it unknown. That's never explained what Fooly Cooly means. So the director said, like, we never explained it. So I thought it'd be cool to name the photo Fooly Cooly, in that shot near the end of episode 6.
Yeah.
We're sort of getting ahead of ourselves there. So, anything else to say about episode 2? I really love that sequence where Mamimi follows Conti, to the burned down school, and then Conti starts flying and everything, and the music there, which is done by a Japanese rock band called the Pillows. I really love the music there because it starts revving up as soon as he starts shooting his jets out of his hands, and launches into the air and all that. It's an awesome little sequence.
I don't know if we need to go into all this depth about each episode, but let's move on to episode 3.
Okay. Nothing else to say? Yeah, so episode, at least for me, like, I know you said, Matt, that you're more of a fan of the first 3 episodes. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the later 3, but I would consider, I think episode 3 is the one that has the most, meaning with the rest of the main story, you know, with all the stuff with Nina Mori and everything. Since the whole idea behind the show is, this is Naota's coming of age story, and the whole sort of idea is that Naota's a kid who's trying to act mature, since he has no adults in his life, and he thinks like he's got to be a mature like an adult in order to be considered, mature and adultish and all that. And that's sort of what Nina Mori's like too, because everyone talks to her about how, oh, you're so mature for your age, not reacting to all this stuff about your mother or your father supposedly having this affair or whatever. She always says, oh, it's not any big deal, I don't care what happens to my father and my mother, But then at the end of it, Nina Mori sort of changes and is like, no, I do have to sort of be my own person, I have to act like a kid, and care about those things because I do care about them. I'm just trying to hide it, by acting mature, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess the thing I really want to delve into is the Fooly Cooly. Okay, what's her chick with the moped? Haruko. The whole idea of this coming of age, I want to talk about that coming of age story, just with all the episodes in general right now.
Okay.
It's almost in a sense, this is that first relationship, that coming of age. She is literally that first relationship that everyone goes through, where, because everyone can pretty much agree, I mean, unless there are people out there, most of the time, like 99, I don't want to be a downer on some people.
Yeah.
Your first relationship doesn't work out.
Crashes and burns sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with this series, especially with Haruko at the end, because, she has her other ulterior motive. And, when he gets the 2 guitars and, he's all being...
Pirate King awesome.
King awesome.
Exactly.
She's jealous. She's like, no, you can't have that. Her whole character changes. And
That fight was insane, by the way.
I wouldn't say her character changes because she even says there in that episode 6, like, Commander Amuro is sort of ranting as the hand is coming down, like, you're doing exactly what Medical Mechanica wants. They're going to flatten the world, iron out the wrinkles so you can't think, and all this stuff. And Haruko's like, yeah, I don't care if that happens. Everyone in this world can die just so long as I get Adamusk's power. So she really is manipulative. I mean, she uses... she obviously sort of almost kills Kamon and turns him into a robot, and then she's the one who hit the baseball in episode 4 that hit the satellite out of orbit and caused it to come falling down the city, so she's not exactly a kind-hearted good character.
Yeah, but she's like, sorry. She is that kind of like that first girlfriend thing, where it's like,
It's complicated, definitely.
Yes, Haruko's relationship is certainly complicated.
But I don't know, just the whole, there's another ulterior motive at play. But at the same time, because of it, your main character develops by it,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like...
He's taken on, he joins the ride, so to say.
Exactly. Like, there's a great, since we're sort of jumping around, I guess, obviously, like I said at the beginning, Haruko's entrance to the show is sort of the entrance of puberty into Naota's life, and Haruko sort of embodies his immaturity and eccentricity, because he's like, nothing incredible ever happens here. Everything is ordinary. He's just a normal kid, and yet Haruko comes in and she's crazy and insane and whacked out and all that. And then, and I was going somewhere with this. Oh, and in episode 6, there's a great sequence. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. When they're off, and Haruko takes Naoto with her on her Vespa, to just go wander, the world or whatever. Naoto goes with her, and they stop by a noodle shop or something, or a gas station, and they're eating noodles or ramen.
Oh, yeah, and about getting the cheap mega brand compared to the brand you stick with and you like.
Exactly. See, that's one of the reasons I love the show. Like, that's a small little scene that has nothing to do with the overarching plot of the show. Yet, right there, that little conversation basically is the two characters' philosophies coming out right there. Because basically what I've written down here is when Haruko buys a giant bowl of cheap ramen, Naoto tells her, when you act selfish like that, bad things are bound to happen, you know. To which Haruko responds, oh, well, I'll just have to deal with the bad things then. I think after that, she even says something like, and you know, sometimes eating bad ramen can be fun, you know. And that's sort of what she teaches him, you know, like, it's good to be responsible like an adult, you know, and be mature, but at the same time, like, act like a kid. You are a kid, you know, do things that are eccentric and crazy and fun and wacky, you know, because that's fun sometimes.
It's life.
Exactly. You know, enjoy life, right? Do you have anything to say about all this stuff, Kenneth?
Well, you guys pretty much covered it all, but one thing I always thought was interesting, because for the first, I mean, you don't really understand until the 6th episode, at least from what I remember, it's the whole iron above the city.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the whole time I was like, the F is that? I was like,
Right.
what? I just thought that was cool at the end. They tied it in, like, it's going to iron everything out. Like, literally. I was like, dude.
I love that because when I listened to the director's commentary, he said, like,
Irony.
oh, no, that's awful.
That was good. He's got a handle on this.
Yes. No, in the director's commentary, he said,
does
like,
have a handle.
he had...
See, you got that. Thank you. Somebody got that.
He had he had designed the iron, you know, as the medical mechanica, you know, sort of design like before they had ironed out everything they're gonna do with the show.
Quote, end quote.
So many
why I liked
iron
it.
puns.
But bum.
Exactly. But then he sort of said, like, you know, it was sort of a coincidence, but it turned out to be a great sort of visual representation of what the story is about. Because, like I said, you know, in that episode, Amuro is talking about like how you're doing exactly what medical mechanica wants. You know, they're going all over the galaxy, ironing out the wrinkles so you can't think. And that's really another piece of great meaning, because obviously, you know, there's the visual image of them like actually going around and flattening, you know, planets and just destroying everything. But it's also this whole idea of like they're trying to make everything the same and trying to iron out the eccentricities. And that's why Haruko hates them so much, because she is the embodiment of immaturity and eccentricness and all that. And she doesn't want to conform to what society wants her to be. But that's exactly what medical mechanica is trying to do.
Yeah.
100%. Definitely.
Yeah. See, so that's one thing I really love about the whole medical mechanica thing. And there's even hints of that at the very end of episode 6, because we see, you know, Naota's sort of grown up a little bit and he's going off to school and he's wearing this uniform.
And the chick says, "You look stupid in it."
Oh, yeah, of course she does, because she's a jerk.
I just like the guitar at the end.
Yes.
How it, like, I obviously didn't make anything afterwards, but kind of alluded to something else, because it like the twung by itself wherever the string started going. So it was like, maybe. So I thought that was really cool. They added that.
Yeah, it almost seems like, you know, is Haruko gone? You know, we don't really know. They sort of leave it ambiguous, but I don't know. I just read this thing where it was like basically saying like, you know, at the end of the series, obviously Naota is mature and he's realized I don't need to act like an adult in order to be mature. Acting like a kid,
He's the Pirate King.
Since I'm a kid, acting like a kid actually makes me more mature than me being a kid and trying to act like an adult. And he sort of comes to that realization. But then at the end there, you know, he's walking with all of his friends, you know, to school, and they're all wearing like these identical uniforms, and there's sort of that hint of like the conformity aspect, you know, as he go like conform to this whole thing with the uniform and society and all that, you know, and you'd hope that what Haruko has taught him will stop him from doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a nice epilogue, though. I'm glad they added it at the end, kind of like the ending. I thought it was really nice. I mean, obviously, if they didn't, it'd be kind of weird, but still.
Exactly. A nice way to sort of
tie it all together.
Yeah, to give everything context. I guess we'll move on real quick to the 4th episode, because obviously the whole thing in that episode is about swinging the bat, you know, and that's said over and over and over again, you know, and we've seen Naota even before that episode carrying around his brother Tasuku's red bat, but he never swings it, you know, when they're playing baseball, he doesn't swing it. He just stands there and gets struck out, you know, every time.
The ball hits him sometimes.
Yes.
It's like when I was watching that episode, I remember it was the whole doomsday thing, because they knew it was coming, the satellite and everything.
Right.
That was the 4th episode, right?
Yeah, that was the 4th episode.
Yeah, because that's one where he hits it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, because the whole time I felt like everyone's going to die, and I was kind of like depressed, like, oh my gosh, it's actually kind of like a little scary, because at the end, like, you got to hit it, man. He was like, I can't. So, I mean, I liked it because it kind of, I guess, so it was really upbeat, but at the same time, it was the most I ever felt like,
Shinji wouldn't have hit it.
Nope, he would have let it hit the world and everybody would have died.
Right. Yes, and obviously, like, the whole, thing behind that is, like, you go out and swing the bat as in, like, you're taking,
Chances.
you're taking a chance. You're being independent and you're acting upon your intuition or whatever. And that's obviously something Haruko is good at since she's so crazy and eccentric and all
like
that.
in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when they say, we're independent, and then the ornaments fall off the tree and going, psh, psh.
Of
It
course.
happens. It does happen.
Great analogy.
Exactly.
And then, of course,
It's
once
about Christmas time anyways.
yes, once again, we get the whole idea where, the crazy things that happen with Naota's head always happen whenever he's emotionally disturbed or whatever. And when he sees Haruko basically making out with his dad, the red light appears on his head and the satellite starts heading for the town and everything.
Yep.
And yeah, that episode is both funny and extremely creepy in regards to the whole Haruko Kamon thing.
Kamon's the father, right?
Yes, the father.
You got to say it in layman's terms.
Sorry, Haruko
Dad,
and the dad.
grandpa, chick with
Awkward,
pink
definitely?
hair.
It is very
Very
awkward.
much so.
I love it when he's rubbing his chin hair on her like back or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's
And
funny.
she's like, she's moaning to it. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Isn't that when he walked in and see that happen?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, what? What? Don't know about my feelings right now.
Yes.
It was really strange.
How do I feel about this? Would I ever want this?
Well, if I walked in, I would probably scream. I'll be honest.
Yeah, and then obviously episode 4 is also where we're introduced to Amuro, and what's interesting is he's similar to Naota in many ways. He had a past relationship with Haruko. He doesn't like I believe he doesn't like the bitter or sour soda. Just like Naota does, because obviously Naota said, "Oh, I don't like sour stuff," and yet at the end of episode 1 he drinks the sour drink and all that. But anyways. And there's that. I think he even says like he doesn't like the spicy bread that they sell at the store because he comes there to buy some, and that's similar to Naota as well. So there's lots of parallels between him and
Because he's
Amuro.
playing the grown-up role.
Exactly. He's trying to be the grown-up, and in many ways he is, because he's the only one that really understands what's going on. Like in episode 6 where he rants about medical mechanica, and like he's the one who's trying to like save the world here, from destruction, and Haruko is sort of like, I don't care what happens. And
I'm getting what I want.
Right, and Naota follows Haruko, so that really doesn't end up happening. But then, especially in episode 5, when he confronts Haruko, like we see him, and he acts pretty childish himself. He's like jealous of Naota because he's in this relationship with Haruko. He's like, what does he have that I don't? Screams that to the sky and all that. And then
That was the episode too, with the whole South Park thing where the
Yes.
hairdressers. He's like, I want my hair to be like all this. It's like, oh, is that candy? Can I have the really sweet kind?
Yeah, I love the South Park little reference. And in episode 5 too, like especially in that one, the animation quality like really goes all over the place because it's got a certain style when it's like doing the gun battle. Like it's very sort of stylized, and you see all these explosions and the gunshots and everything. And then at other points, it's more sort of realistic looking. Mm-hmm. But then obviously the big thing in episode 4 is, number one, once again, we see Haruko's sort of more evil than we thought, since she basically like sort of kills Kamon only for him to be revived by water, which totally makes sense.
Of course it does. Water heals everything. Come on.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly, yes. and we get the whole sequence where, it seems like Naota hit his dad, and he thinks he like hurt him or whatever, and Amuro's like confronting him about this and all that.
Questioning him.
Exactly. And he's sort of questioning, like, why are you so loyal to Haruko? She's this, person, like Haruko's not even her name. He has a different name for her that I don't even remember what it was, but that she called herself in the past when she was with him and all that. Mm-hmm. But then obviously he still goes out with Haruko even after all that's happened, and goes up there on the roof and, is basically left there alone with her to swing the bat, in order to hit the big bomb away. And we get that very awkward scene where Haruko pulls the guitar out of Naota's head, which has so many sexual innuendos, I don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
Or even, the little one.
Oh, well, that's in episode 5. with.
I'm talking about with
Amuro.
eyebrows.
I know.
The little,
yeah, yeah.
You know how the shape and everything it is.
It's a little.
And it doesn't even change into the color of a guitar. It stays this.
No, I think it does change color
Oh, it
later.
does? Okay, later. But
At
you know,
least
it's-
at first.
Yeah.
it stays a
Well-
pretty, Caucasian color.
And of course, when that happens, Haruko says like "small as usual." So it's true. Like the guitars definitely have a sort of. They're sort of like almost the souls, but also sort of with a sexual connotation to it.
But at the same
of our
time, like I
characters.
understand why they're in there. It's obviously because like when she was going through all the different bands and stuff, like that music, because music's obviously, it plays a role in this as well. But when she's like, I've got to get that kind of guitar, like I said, Fooly Cooly, little too over the top. I prefer my Ava.
You say over the top, but yet you like Gurren Lagann, even though that's extremely over the top and ridiculous and stupid.
It's got robots.
So does this show. It's got huge robots, awesome robot battles.
They're not as cool.
Oh, jeez. Well, whatever.
They don't have spiral
But
energy.
one thing this is true. One thing I didn't talk about, which is actually a tidbit that I found out while I was doing this paper, is that you see the symbol for Adamusk, the red symbol with like the circle.
Yeah, what is that?
Yes, well, that's Adamusk's symbol, but apparently it is the kanji for the Japanese word adult, except with one of the characters turned upside down. So you see that symbol appear on Kanti's head in the first episode, and it appears on Kanti's head.
TV monitor for those who don't know.
Yes, the TV robot.
Oh yeah, going back to that third episode, I loved when she's like, "Why does your TV eat?" And then, why does your TV walk?
Yeah, I like how nobody seems to find it strange that there's a robot just walking around the
No,
city.
but in the first, it was in the first. No, it had to be in the second episode. When he's like, your main character is telling his father, you shouldn't have that thing around. It'll scare customers. Scare people away. And you have people on their bicycles, and they just boop,
Yeah.
they disappear.
I
Or, people
honestly-
walk by and they boop.
I don't even understand that. I have all these explanations for the show. I have no idea why that happens.
Because they're scared of
It's
it.
just hilarious.
They just walk, they're just doing whatever. They come in front of it, and it's just boop.
Interesting. I never thought of it that way before. to be
Yeah, I
honest.
mean, what I like about the show though is the fact that they're okay with ridiculous things happening. I mean,
exactly,
like the
like-
robot, the iron, all of these things that happen. Everybody's like, like
Yeah.
a freaking satellite bomb, and they're like, we're
Yeah.
all right.
It's even in the shape of a baseball.
Of
Yes,
course it
I
is.
mean,
A satellite.
It's gotta be.
We put a bomb in a satellite shaped like a baseball.
Just in case.
Yep.
just in
You never
case.
know when it might be needed. But
And of course, it unfolded from hand.
of course
you
it
know,
did.
It was a hand, and then
Well,
it
also
pitched it. It threw it.
You gotta
exactly
throw it somehow.
because you see the image of the hand in every one of the robots. Like the first robot is a hand, the second robot it looks like a hand, from a certain angle. And I don't know about the third one. That one not so much. But the
Parallels Ava. The
Yeah.
different angels.
You're right. It actually really does.
If you think about that, the different angels that want this event to happen,
Different robots pushing it along.
and you've got an organization that wants to flatten everything out.
Boom, boom, boom.
While in Ava, they want the whole thing, everyone to be part of Lilith, or the round circle thing.
Jeez,
Pardon.
Matt is dying over here.
He's struggling. He's got
a
it.
cold.
They don't want him to get this out. He's figuring everything out. They're trying to stop him.
But no,
sent
Gynax is
assassins.
poisoning him.
They sent their
That
assassin.
kind of, you don't have Sele, which is a bummer, but Sele means
Do we really need an organization of old men running Medical Mechanica?
Nerve. The Nerve organization was established to execute the wishes of Sele.
I almost-
It was intended to enact
Yes,
scenario
yes,
we-
Ava.
Hey, I know those quotes.
I know.
Which is impressive.
But you mentioned that. I almost the only thing we see of Medical Mechanica, I think, is in episode 2 when Haruka crashes into it and Naota shows up as her guardian, to sort of get her away from the police officer and the random assistant. But they're just in the lobby of the Medical Mechanica building. We never see who's running Medical Mechanica or what is even inside the factory. We know that there's robots being made in there, but I kind of like that they never explain it. It's just sort of this
Or give them a
entity.
face, yeah.
Exactly. That's just this powerful force, that's sort of behind everything that happens in the show.
I don't know. Ava and this, there's some similarities,
you
especially
never see their
with
faces.
what?
Everybody around, you don't see, other than Gendo, you don't really see, do you see their faces? I don't remember.
You see Nerve people, but you don't.
Yeah.
You see the main 5 of Sele members. You see, what is his name? Keel. I think his name's Keel. The main, old guy who's running Sele.
Yeah.
And then early on in the series, you had the 4 other people you had.
That's right.
And they were from the 4 major countries. You had the U.S., you had Britain, you had Russia.
I don't know.
Germany.
It's probably I think it's just like the Security Council, pretty much from the UN, but a little different.
Yeah,
Interesting.
But what really connected that whole Ava idea was the whole that the satellite crashing down, because remember the angel that's the eye and it comes crashing down
And it cries, and that thing was.
It starts off as a ball.
It comes down and makes a crater first.
It tries to, but it's the opposite. It's opposite in Fooly Cooly than what it was in Ava, because like there's still that transformation. Like in Fooly Cooly, it's the satellite and it bursts open and it throws the ball.
Right.
While in Ava, it starts off as a ball and then it unwinds.
It's like a spidery kind of,
and it opens up and comes down. So. I don't know. There could be there's some
fun facts.
There's some similarities, and then
go.
the fact that, like you were mentioning, I mean, if now that I'm thinking, now we're pulling Ava stuff. What's like Ava?
Geez, here we go.
The whole gun, that the robot. Yeah. It's like the one with shooting down the Diamond Angel. So
there's a lot of parallels if you think about it.
Skynex.
So you got it.
Exactly.
It's Ava too, but it sucked.
What you think? Fooly Cooly is Ava 2?
But it sucked.
Oh.
It was a terrible Ava.
If it's compared to Ava.
I'm sorry,
It's not as good as the first Ava.
Yes. What? So does that make Gurren Lagann Ava season 3 or something?
No, there's nothing close there.
But they're giant robots fighting each other. That's closer.
No.
No, but there's not even giant robots in.
I'm loving this.
In Fooly Cooly. The only giant robot is the one in the fifth
There's
episode.
a secret organization that wants to flatten the world, while in Ava they want to make everyone into one round being. It's perfect.
It all makes sense.
Perfect sense.
Round and flat, they're
All right.
different.
Well, before we got sidetracked on the Ava conversation,
True.
I was
Kenneth was just trying to make a new Ava, but it didn't work out.
I was talking about the adult symbol, that you see throughout the show, and it appears on Kanti's head in the first episode. It appears on Kanti's head in the second episode. Curiously enough, when Naota is about to be attacked by the second robot, and he shouts his brother's name, Tasku, like as he's about to be attacked, then the adult symbol appears and Kanti eats him, and then turns all red, and they go and fight and kill the robot and turn to that little gun thing that you talked about.
Yeah, red like the Ava Unit 2.
See, look,
Really?
everywhere.
It couldn't just be that red is like the symbol for Adamusk throughout the whole series.
I'm pretty sure if we would go to the color palette, that red's pretty red, and it looks pretty Ava red.
And the
isn't
warning
there
lights.
some orange and white on it?
There are.
Oh, see, those are Ava Unit 2
And their
colors.
mouths are red when it opens because they have tongues and stuff.
Oh wait, no, the mouth. The way the
When
mouth
it rips-
opens.
yeah.
That's like the Ava units from the white things. Remember the other?
That's what I'm
units?
saying. See?
Yeah, I'm telling
See? Connections.
These guys are pointing fingers back and forth, getting so excited.
It happened.
It's Ava. It was Ava 2. Just they had to rename it.
Legit. Like, we can't really do this again.
Fooly Cooly.
Exactly. But then you see the adult symbol again in episode 3, right before Kanti, absorbs Naota again, and
And the main character doesn't want to grow up.
Wait, he got absorbed. Shinji's trying to get. Remember the capsule when he's in the capsule?
Yeah,
being
he's
absorbed?
got to sync with
His
it.
mother.
my.
Yeah, see, boom. Okay, sorry.
See, you just don't like the original product. That's why you don't like Ava.
That's what
You
we
just
haven't
like-
tied in.
You like this subpar product.
you guys have transformed this into an Ava podcast.
As it should be.
It's out of my control, people.
Please continue.
Yes, but then in episode 5, what's interesting is that once again, he's sitting up there on top of the building, and Haruko leaves him, and he's sitting there with his bat, as the giant baseball bomb comes down towards him. Exactly. And of course he's like terrified, and then what does he do? He says his brother's name again, Tasku, cries it out. Then we see Kanti's screen flash with the adult symbol once again, and then it appears on his forehead, and then he finally gets the willpower to swing the bat, and he hits the big bomb thing, and he sort of stopped it from coming any farther. Interestingly enough, though, it's about to explode, if you recall. Like, it's just sitting there. It's like, oh no, it's gonna blow up. And then Haruko shows up and hits it with her guitar, and that manages to send it flying off into the sky, and it explodes there, and everyone's safe. But the way I sort of read that is like, it's once again, it's sort of a thing where, he wants to swing the bat by himself, but he can't. And he calls on his brother's name, because that's his sort of symbol of maturity and who he looks up to and all that. And then we see the adult symbol on Conti's screen and the adult symbol on, his forehead. And something that's been sort of recurring throughout the show, obviously a symbol of this whole maturity thing. But it's a maturity, the word adult, except it's slightly corrupted.
Rated M for mature.
Exactly.
I mean, I bet the people in Japan, when they saw adult come on the TV, like, oh, it's going to get some PG-13 action in here.
But then, obviously...
they were disappointed.
Of course.
And then, Naota swings the bat, but he's not able to do it by himself. He has to call on Tasku to help him out.
His friend.
And then Haruko needs to come and sort of help him hit it out of the park as well. So it's sort of a thing where he's gaining his independence, but he still is reliant on Tasku and on Haruko, in order to achieve it. So that's
He's on
sort
the
of
next stepping stone.
Exactly. And he's sort of transforming. And you see that even more because right there at the end of episode 4, foreshadowing what's going to happen in episode 5, Momimi says something like, he swung the bat, and she's looking all sad because obviously Momimi has always been this person who sort of preys on the weak-willed, and Naota was this weak-willed person who was her substitute for Tasku, and she uses the weak-willed cat and the weak-willed little helpless terminal core in episode 6, and she names them all Tasku, after his brother. Or
But what's
Takun,
interesting is the
I should
cat
say.
eventually even leaves her.
Exactly.
She's
Just
left
like
with-
Naota leaves her.
Everyone leaves her. She which kind of leaves the thing is she almost like, what if she suffocates people? 'Cause
What?
well, not like like with how
Literally
Suffocates
asphyxiation.
people.
with how attached she gets.
Okay. I was thinking like in a literal sense.
No.
She's trying to kill her.
But I do want to mention on the side note real quick. We're going to stay on this topic, but purple-haired girl, she's definitely Ray, and the two other
Nina Mori?
two other schoolboys. They're definitely
I know who you're talking about.
they're
the two
Ida
guys,
and
guys from Ava,
Yeah.
Shinji's friends.
Because I was gonna say, doesn't at one
Shinji's
point
friends.
Unit 1 does choke Unit 4, doesn't it? Before it kills it, suffocating.
Okay.
Connection.
But that,
no,
nothing
that's
to do
a
with the
terrible
show.
connection. That's a terrible connection. We can't completely Ava this, but
I can.
there are some similarities,
Yeah,
Alex.
I'm not denying that there are similarities.
And our main character is very depressing. He's like, "Nah."
Well, he's not nearly to the extent of Shinji.
He's
Come
so
on.
much cooler.
No, he's not. Come on, Naota gets the power of the Pirate King, glows Super Saiyan Red, and goes and beats the crap out of
say
Haruko and all
Super
the
Saiyan
robots. That's pretty much what he is. He goes
I know,
Super
but
Saiyan.
that's like awesome though, the way you pointed that out. That is true. I mean, he does beat people with guitars, which is epic.
And he goes through a thing called character growth. He goes from one point in the
Shinji
early
just
part
goes
of the show.
down. His character goes
hear me
down,
out.
not growth.
Reverse growth.
Exactly. He starts off, sort of. He's very lonely, and he's
Oh, we're
reliant
talking
on.
about Ava now? Wow. Well, we should do this. We should analyze it more.
He starts off lonely, and he's reliant on Tasku and Momimi and everyone else, and he's trying to be this thing that he's not, trying to act
I
like
thought
an
we were
adult
talking
when
about
he's a
Shinji.
kid. And then by the end of the show, he sort of become his own person. He's independent of Haruko and Momimi and Tasku and everyone else, and he's advanced as a character, and he was able to confess his love for Haruko, a mature adult thing that he couldn't do before, and all this stuff. So he actually changes and develops and grows and goes through a coming of age story. Whereas Shinji just starts off emo, gets a little bit better, and then just goes down the hole and it just stops.
Oh, you're going to get some fan rage. I'm going to have to say, Ava fans, listen to this. This guy over here doesn't like it. And
The
then
biggest thing is that in Fooly Cooly though, he does not have Pen. Because Pen the best character.
well, the
Wait,
Pen would obviously be the cat.
What-
It's the crazy animal.
Is
You have to have
Penpen's
Penpen's
bed.
Penpen's the penguin?
penguin.
yeah,
Okay.
he makes the show. Come on.
Oh, jeez.
Why do you think I watch
Okay,
it so
but
much?
I guess we'll
Next year.
talk real quick about episode 5. Once again, like I said,
trying to go in order.
pretty much, yeah. The whole idea is that this episode focuses heavily on Naota and Momimi again, except this time Momimi's. Like she said that in the first episode, he swung the bat. He's sort of becoming
She's lost her
independent,
footing.
and
She's
she even
sort of like Ray, too.
exactly.
She is.
She sort of says something when she points the gun at him, the little airsoft gun, and shoots him with it.
him.
And during that little scene to bind down the river, she says this line, which I think is important. When did you start to change and grow up and everything, Taku? As it becomes of Haru-san, is she changing you?
Which she kind of becomes jealous of her. Like, she never goes out of her way to attack her, but
Yeah, well,
She obviously has feelings of happiness.
Well, it's because he's all, like you said, going away. He's growing up, and she can't really control him as much.
And that's what she wanted with basically the person that she would, because she wanted his older brother. He left.
Yeah,
and she could control our main character.
He was a substitute for Tosco.
And she controlled him, and left him in this thing. Then Haru comes, and now everything's opening up to him. He's being tested. He's opening up, and she doesn't want that. But she doesn't fight for him either. And instead, she just labels other objects as like, oh, you're now.
Yeah, she's more passive when it comes to actual big things because, like you said, she's an actual passive person as well, or like along those lines.
She lets the thing eat her cell phone, and then she goes stealing cell phones to like feed it. And it's like, let's go. And she gets
get revenge.
But then that's also probably because she's been.
Exactly, because
she's had no.
It's implied that she's like that her parents are separated, and then she comes from like a poor family, and that's why she never goes to school and is always under the bridge smoking the cigarettes and everything.
Yep.
And also, what's interesting in episode 5 is you made the point that, or someone made the point that no one's notices when the giant baseball is coming down to destroy the city, but yet in episode 5 they actually talk about it and they're like, oh, Naota, we've heard rumors at school that you like went up there and saved the city, and all that. And what's interesting is that in each episode the bump on Naota's head takes on a different form, and within episode 5 it's the image of a gun being cocked and ready to fire. And when that image appears, like oftentimes it appears when he's talking to them and he's like, oh, well, no, it wasn't that great. I didn't do anything important. Gun gets cocked. And then he's like, well, actually, yeah, I guess I did save the city. I'm pretty awesome, hon. He sort of is a little cocky and overconfident now, after doing this thing. You're so funny, man.
And they have cocky references.
Jeez.
Sexual innuendos.
Oh, gotta love it. And then it also happens.
Lots of puns in this spot.
Oh, yes.
I love it.
And it even happens in also in episode 5 when he's talking with man, are you guys just gonna start your own like dual person Ava podcast?
We could totally do it. It would work. Analyze every episode in depth.
Start off every episode. But focusing on Fooly Cooly.
Fooly Cooly, yes.
Fooly Cooly.
And what's interesting is that when he's talking with Haruko in his room, I believe, once again, sort of the bump on the back of his head, goes into the shape of the what do you call that? The hammer of a gun, and it sort of pushes his head off the bed and forces him to kiss Haruko, against his will. Yep. But that's the whole sort of the puberty thing once again, sexual innuendos.
I love how the father comes in and is like, oh, I can't believe I caught you doing this Fooly Cooly act. And,
yes. Such dirty acts.
And it's interesting because the whole reference when he tries to jump on her, he's like,
oh yeah, the Lupin reference.
That's complete. Like from the one other movie I've seen of Lupin, I've seen Castle Cagliostro and the Mamo film, which was garbage. People are gonna hate me for that, but garbage. He literally does the whole, literally when he goes after Fujiko, it's let me strip into my heart-shaped underwear and let me try to pounce on you, and then obviously he always gets punched back somehow.
Yeah.
So
I think it might even be in like the opening of the old TV show.
Yeah, like it's a clear reference to Lupin and the gun
and the even the title of the episode. It does the sort of typewriter font, and it does the click 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 click, just like Lupin does. For that episode 5
Still got to see that new series. I've heard it's okay.
Interesting. But yeah, then episode 5 is cool for me because there's all this action, like the gunfights at the beginning, and then the awesome fight against the robot at the end, which is this giant city tall thing. Do you have a point about that?
No points.
One of the things I always found interesting about the show is like I said, the third time I watched it, I noticed a lot of the animation a lot more. Like there's this really great effect they use whenever they're on the river and it's like sunset and the water's really sparkling and stuff, and it looks really gorgeous. And in episode 5, there's one shot of Haruko when she's fighting the robot and she's like surfing on the guitar, in the air or whatever. And then she goes and she jumps on the gun and is running up the giant robot's gun basically. And it's this long pan shot, and it's amazing how they do it without any 3D animation. Like it's all 2D hand drawn, yet it looks like a 3D shot because of the extensive camera movements and everything.
Well, like I said, one thing I was really impressed is I don't think there was any 3D. The only thing that they used is the hand coming down to grab it. I think that was actually film.
Yeah,
like it was real live.
Apparently,
action.
I think that's the director's hand. Like it's a live action
Yeah.
thing. It looks a little weird. I'm not gonna lie.
But it works. I mean,
It's literally there for 2 seconds, so it's not a big deal. But obviously, episode 5, like the big sort of story bit is that Naota sort of confronts Mamimi, and is sort of asking like, oh no, things were better without Haruko, we should be together. And Mamimi is sort of like, no, you've changed. Haruko has changed you. You don't really like me. It's not the way it is anymore.
Hotel.
And then
Close.
no, he's taking her to get coffee or go to a restaurant. He even says it.
Coffee.
Oh my gosh. You guys-
Another reference.
Okay, the point is the way the building looks. It's got the 2 gray walls.
If you
and
actually
it's
listen to what is being said,
The context.
he says it's a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that.
it's something, all right.
Oh my.
Oh man, but then he
I mean, it's a really tall coffee shop. Isn't it like multiple stories,
It got really good coffee in many levels. Changes regions.
and then
private rooms?
Private drinking rooms.
oh yes, private drinking rooms just for us.
Oh.
With a bed, a TV, some lights, a bathroom, toilet,
And she
sink.
doesn't want to date him.
Oh yeah.
Disappointing. After all of that.
All of that. She's just going after her
Yes.
other dude.
But then obviously
who's not the pirate king anymore.
Nope.
Nope. And then obviously, when Mamimi sort of refuses him, like the robot, the gun finally gets shot and the robot comes out of his head. It's this enormous skyscraper tall robot thing. And what's interesting is that sort of the climax of that episode is when they're both trapped on the like the top of the head of the robot. And Mamimi is just saying, Tasku, Tasku, Tasku. And she keeps repeating his name over and over again. And Naota's like, hey, listen to me. I'm the one who's going to save you, not my brother. Listen to me. He's yelling at her. And then finally...
Well, see, that's where it really proves that she only saw him as...
Exactly. She doesn't really care about him. She sort of projected Tasku onto him, her attachment to him, who, as it's implied, may not have even had a relationship with her. And she's really just so desperate
She's
and ridiculous.
She's got a screw loose. The fact that she takes this puppy eating bite.
Exactly.
She's like, no, Tasku, you can't do that. They're not on my hate list.
Exactly.
That would definitely be a little disconcerting to see in public.
Yeah.
Might need to see a doctor.
Exactly.
Do you have any friends like this, folks? If you do,
They may have a condition.
they might have a condition.
Indeed. The Fooly Cooly condition.
Fooly Cooly.
That's what it means. It's a condition. We
There you
solved
go.
it.
Ta-da!
Genius.
He'll kill us
Podcast
now.
over.
He'll hunt us down one by one.
But then obviously, as he's yelling that, then he like screams to the sky. Kanti comes down and flies on top of the robot. And just before Naota fuses with Kanti, he basically says something where he says, "Now listen, my name is Naota. Don't ever call me Takun again." And he basically sort of tells her off. Is like, why are you nodding your head like that?
Because he's going to come after us. Sorry to completely just disrupt.
Completely take this over.
But if he's going to come after us now because we solved the answer,
Yeah.
he's going to come in one of those Wii commercials, like when they used to do the "We would like to play," except
Yeah.
it's going to be for the Wii U, and it's like "We would like to play," and then he's going to kill us right there.
We would like to play you.
Are you talking?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the director of the show or who?
Yeah, or,
He'll come in a suit like that and just be like, "How'd you get in the dorm? We would like to play."
But see, you just think they're from Nintendo, and they're not.
Because when you die, you realize my roommate probably wouldn't care. Let's be honest.
Sorry.
They're not from Nintendo.
What
they're
were you
from
saying?
Gainax.
That idea was very crucial to this thing.
Oh yes, very crucial.
It's crucial.
But
You had to
the,
make sure it was put in.
the other thing I think that's interesting about episode 5 is obviously like he's very overconfident and everything and sort of cocky in this episode, and because of that, for the first time, he fails at defeating the robot. Like he gets shot out of the cannon thing, but misses. And it's not Naota that saves the day, but it's Kanti, who draws the guitar out of his head, and uses it to destroy the robot, which is awesome, by the way.
Oh yes.
But then, it sort of ends with, like, I think Haruko is standing on Naota's face, sort of lovingly looking up at Kanti, and so Naota's sort of lost. He failed in that episode, and that obviously is reflected in episode 6 when Kanti is gone and Haruko's gone as well, and Naota's all depressed and alone.
But I think it's interesting because it still shows that he is a child, because the fact that he cries to Haru, and it's like, the fact that he did, and the fact that he does come out and say, I love you, obviously later on in that episode, but the fact that he had these emotions, the fact that he came to her, because it was, when he cried to her when she was magically back, in his bedroom, and, after everything. It's interesting because it's like I said, it's like, it really is like that first relationship, at least from my experience, where I was a little over-attached. And, like you're attached to that first person.
And see, that goes along with it too, because the first person you meet is usually out of this world, you could say. Because she's an alien. She's an alien. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, because what's interesting is in the director's commentary, he talks about it because obviously the words kids, word kid and the word adult, have a certain meaning within the show, because that's basically what the show is all about, is, this whole maturity thing. And he says that when that happens, Naota cries, it's like, why did you leave? And Haruko like hugs him back and says like, you're still a kid, Naota. And the director,
but in the end,
right. Well, and the director said there that she calls him a kid, really, quote, saying that he didn't really need to be worried about adult sort of stuff. And then at the end, after Adamus takes everything and vanishes off in the sky.
She's just like, you're just a kid.
Exactly. She says that again.
But it's in a non-caring way. It's just a...
No. Here's what the director had to say about it. When talking about Haruko calling Naota a kid, director Tsurumaki said, but this last time she said it, when she called him a kid, she was saying that Naota, who is acting like a kid again, he has accepted it. Naota has actually grown up. Kids who act like kids and don't pretend to be adult are actually more adult. And I think that right there is basically like the show encapsulated in a little couple of sentences, because that's really what he's moving towards the whole time. And that's also sort of foreshadowed with Nina Mori, because in episode 6, they're talking about Naota, when they're outside playing, I think they're like, what are they doing? They're doing some sort of gym activity, and Nina Mori's talking with the 2 other boys, and they're talking about Naota and how he ran away, and like, oh, why did he do that? And Nina Mori says something like, oh, he's just got to do what I did. I accepted my feelings. It was true to myself, and I went and talked to my mom and dad, and then I cried and stuff, And that's really sort of, so Nina Mori is a parallel of Naota. She's also, just like him, she was trying to be an adult when she was really a kid. And that's what was going on in episode 3. And then by episode 6, she sort of accepted the fact that, no, I am a kid. I cried to them, and I, was true to myself and true to my feelings. And that's what he has to do. And that's what he does at the end of episode 6.
On another note, she was eating that popsicle in a very dirty way.
I think that was in episode 5. But yeah,
yes.
It is a little strange.
Which is an interesting topic to go into about if you understand the whole idea when she said "I won." Do you know the whole background behind that?
When did she say
says,
I won?
What they do in Japan when you buy popsicles, there's actually like, if you get the lucky popsicle, it'll say you won or not, and if you win, you take it back to like the place you got it, and they take it and you get a free ice cream.
Really?
What? Really?
Really, really, really. And what's interesting is, not to make an Ava reference here, but in the second Ava film, listen. Okay,
I'm listening.
In the second Ava film, they do this, except, I don't remember what the lines they changed, but in the dub of it, they completely because that's a pretty Japanese
custom.
But in the American English film of the Ava film, they just completely gloss over. It's just he's like, in the English one, he's like, darn, that didn't last long enough. But in the real translation, it's like, darn, I lost.
Right.
So,
interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously Fooly
because it
Cooly,
was translated in Fooly Cooly.
Yeah, Fooly Cooly is a very Japanesey show, and I'm sure, like you said, with the references to like the different actors and bands and stuff, they changed
changed that, but I'm surprised they didn't change this because what I remember from eating popsicles when I was a kid, was the jokes. Do you remember that?
The jokes and the puns.
The puns and stuff. So I'm surprised that didn't get changed. I mean, I know it was only a really quick dialogue, but if they had just had her laugh or do something, it would have made it more connected to us, like with a joke or something. But the fact that she said, "Oh, I won,"
but I like now that I didn't realize that, but now that you explained it, I kind of like that. Like that's sort of a cool, little insertion of this Japanese custom.
And it's interesting now because if you watch an anime and if they look at a popsicle stick and they say something else, like they do in the Funimation Eva 2.22 movie, you can say, that was something else. You guys just glossed over it. I see you think we're dumb. I see what you did there. We're not dumb.
Yeah. Interesting. The exact quote that Nina Mori says during that scene is not the popsicle scene. We're going back to the gym scene or whatever. She says, all he needs to do is say what he really feels. That's what I did. Then I cried and stuff. And then she says, like, I cried to my mother and father, So basically, once again, parallel to Naota. It's cool. And one of the things I really like about the 6th episode is... listeners, just hold up your hands parallel to each other. That's what we're doing right now. But speaking of more parallels, I love the parallel between episode 1 and episode 6 because they're very similar in that they start with Naota being sort of alone and lonely, and then then Haruko enters, and it goes into the manga style again.
Yeah, there was the whole parallel, but it wasn't that. Like, it wasn't, like, super parallel. Like, there were some things, and I liked how they did put the comic back. Because, like I said, that's some of the best funny, like, Fooly Cooly, what is Fooly Cooly? You obviously know what Fooly Cooly is. And isn't that when he makes the reference? It's like, you're the main character. You should know what Fooly Cooly is.
I love that. That is very true. I've actually just remembered something. I'm going to go try and find this quote in here.
Oh, dear. He's pulling out the backpack.
I'm pulling out the backpack. I'll see if I can find it.
Oh, no. He's got the notebook.
Well,
run away, folks. Don't tell your names. Don't give your names here to the podcast or your image of your face.
Or Social Security.
Well, that's an important one. We don't want to steal any identities. But more importantly, don't give Alex Schmitz your name or your face. He could be L. I mean, no, not L. Light.
Whoa.
He could be Kira.
I'm Kira. I have a death note. I'm going to kill you all.
It's a black notebook, folks. I mean...
I don't think
oh my gosh, it is a black notebook. That is kind of creepy.
And he's got some. Oh, look at all those names.
That would make it obvious. Either real Death Notes wouldn't say Death Note on it because we know Shinigami would change it.
There you go. No, what I was.
Those are instructions to kill someone. I'm sorry.
Close enough.
You guys just twist everything I do.
Twist it.
Yes, twist it.
It's like Bop It. That's a great game. Bop It.
This is the most random episode we've ever done.
Pull it.
Man, Hungry Hippos. We lost 80 of those things every game. But anyways, sorry.
My goodness. But no, what I love is also within episode 6, one of those parallels with episode 1 is how it talks about, he says throughout the series he repeats the line, nothing amazing ever happens here, everything is ordinary, referring to the city, and then it would show like Medical Mechanica and stuff. And obviously throughout the series, every time a robot appears or something happens with Haruko or Naota's NO channel, the Medical Mechanica factory spews out this smoke, fog, whatever you want to call it, mist. And then in episode 6, it starts off with basically saying like, since Haruko left, the Medical Mechanica factory has been spewing out this mist. And there's this great line, I believe it's right after she hugs Naota, and he says, oh, why did you leave and all this stuff. And he says, when you're in a town like this, all covered with smoke, you forget that there's a world outside. Nothing amazing happens here, and you get used to that, used to a world where everything is ordinary. Every day we spend here is like a whole lifetime of dying slowly. But now Haruko is here. That's how I know there really is a world outside. And obviously it's sort of cheesy, but at the same time, like it's great both with the visual and the symbolic imagery of it. Like he literally can't see what's going on outside of his town because of the smoke.
But he needs her to see that, and unfortunately, that's being dependent on that person. And then what he eventually realizes in the end of the series is he doesn't need anybody to guide him. He needs to just be himself. He needs to take the initiative and swing the bat.
Exactly.
To be his own guy. To make his own choice of whether the world is boring or not, to make his life better.
Exactly. You hit the nail right on the head.
And here's another funny topic. Episodes 1 and 6 parallel each other. And, fun fact, kids, an equal sign It's 2 parallel line segments.
Oh my god.
And one other interesting fact is, you know how I pointed out that there's the adult symbol seen throughout the show that's the symbol of Adamisk? What's interesting, like Adult Swim.
Can we say adult? That could be a bad word.
It's a fine word.
Maybe Fooly Cooly.
For adults.
Fooly Cooly. What's interesting is that when Conti is about to get Conti, who is the robot for those who don't know, the TV in his head, when he's about to be absorbed by the terminal core, he has a symbol flash on his face, but instead of it being the Adamisk symbol, it's a blue symbol. Ooh. And as it turns out, that
someone did the research.
Indeed, I did. And that is actually the kanji for the word child. So instead of it being the word adult, now it's the word child. And that also happens when Naota gets eaten by the terminal core and he goes into the hole in the hand and fuses with it. And you pointed out how there's the circle images that spin around that looked spiralish to you. That is the exact same symbol, the symbol for child, looking blue, you know, opposite of red, Adamisk symbol, which is adult. So interesting parallels there, since, you know, in the previously he's had the power of the adult, you know, but this time, like, he's sort of acting childish, you know, by choosing to go with Haruko instead of doing the logical thing and going with, Amuro and saving the world, you know, and all that. So
obviously, what I've learned from this podcast, Kenneth, is that we, when doing this Ava review sometimes next year, we must have a Black Death Note in order to write the information of Ava.
And have proper quotes.
Have proper quotes, proper symbolism connections.
I second this.
Yes. we must list it all. We must list every single religious theme.
All of them?
That's all right. Okay.
All of the awesome.
I just want to clarify that this black notebook thing is actually
a death note.
It's not a death note.
It is a death note.
It is, since I'm an HTC student, we're given these commonplace books at the beginning of the year, and we're supposed to fill them out and turn them in our portfolio reviews, which is coming up soon for me.
Ooh, really?
And the way I used it was basically I would put quotes that I liked in the book, and so it's filled with
Pretty
those
clever.
and story ideas and things like that. And
That's
so
what they all say.
I remembered that the Fooly Cooly quote was in there. I went and grabbed it, but now I'm a killer, I
Cover
guess.
up.
So whatever.
So if we don't make it out here live, he could be the agent that's supposed to kill us.
Yes.
Figuring this out.
Yes.
You guys are the last survivors to hear this. He'll come after you. He'll follow your IP addresses to whoever downloaded this.
Exactly.
So we just lost all of the listeners.
There might be hope.
Thank you.
If you can, send a message to the FBI.
Please.
Oh,
Weren't they after Kira too?
Yes.
And then they surrendered.
Another parallel between the first episode and this one is how obviously in the first episode Kanti came out of Naota's head, you know, in that first episode. But whereas in the sixth episode, it's the opposite, where Naota comes out of Kanti's head when he comes out and he's glowing with his red Super Saiyan Adamisk powers of the Pirate King and all this.
See, when they first said Pirate King, I was like, oh, One Piece reference. And then it's like, oh, in episode 6, it's like, oh, you didn't mean that. You just, no, that's not the Pirate King. The Pirate King is going after the One Piece. That is not the One Piece.
He's the future pirate.
I wonder if it was like a reference to
No, it wasn't.
it
can't be.
it can't be.
It's flawed. It's a flawed Ava archetype. It's Ava Unit 0. That's all this is.
Oh my goodness. Yes, but then obviously, you know, we get this epic final battle, you know, where Naota, you know, is basically is given a choice between Haruko's way and Amuro's way, and he chooses to go with Haruko, but then he doesn't go through with it. You know, he stops the giant hand from coming down the iron, and then fights Haruko, you know, and then confesses his love to her. And basically, when he it's the I'm doing so bad here. When he confesses his love for Haruko, you know, it's a climax. It's a victory for him because he's accepted who he is and is able to do the adult thing, you know, tell Haruko the truth. And I see you texting there, but I know you're not actually texting. You're just trying to make me mad. I wish
That's not really it, but
Please continue.
It's so fascinating.
Yes, I know I've been monologuing a lot in this episode, but we're almost done.
No.
And what's also interesting, like you bring up those images, like the picture that Mamimi takes, you know, at the end of the series.
Yeah, she wants to become a photographer. Obviously, it describes all, you know,
crazy people.
Crazy people. Obviously, all artistic people, which I'm an artistic person, are crazy people.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Pretty much. But
Sorry, crazy people.
I love, like, when I was noticing, like, the animation stuff, I love the composition of some of those shots, and especially there at the end, like, after Adamus appears, and takes the terminal core with him into space and all that. Like, there's that shot of Haruko, looking up in the sky, and then, like, Naoto picks up the guitar and is looking at her, and then she drives off, in her Vespa. And what's interesting is that they actually sort of exchange guitars. Haruko takes Naoto's guitar, the double guitar that he made, and he keeps
the blue one.
Right, he keeps the blue one that was Haruko's previously.
I never understood why it was like a chainsaw, but that's okay.
Because it's awesome.
And it has a
why
gun.
not? A chainsaw guitar gun of power. Why not?
It's badass.
Exactly. And what I guess what's sort of interesting is we've seen repeatedly throughout the series that these guitars sort of are the souls of the characters, and also sort of in a way they have a
could
sexual.
have used more rock and roll music then, if it was the soul.
They had I don't know if you can classify it rock and roll, but if you diss the soundtrack to the show, I'm gonna kill you because I love.
I
the
didn't really
Pillows
even
music.
pay attention to it. Like, it glossed over me. Like, seriously,
But
if
what-
we wanted to pick, like, it didn't stick out to me. Like, it wouldn't be something I would go download.
Really?
No, it didn't pop out to me because like some stuff, it's like, yeah, I gotta go download this.
I don't know. It's different for me, I guess. But what's interesting,
show.
by the way, little side note, is that the Pillows is this like independent, rock Japanese group, and they actually did not compose any of this music for the show itself.
They just played it.
Right, exactly. The Gainax, basically must have bought the rights to their music, but that was pre-existing music. So they basically took this pre-existing music and put it in the show, which is sort of unusual for an anime, since most of the time it's composed music composed specifically for the show, and yet they integrate this indie J-rock music into the show, and it works so well. Like, people love the soundtrack. The Pillows' popularity skyrocketed after this came out because of the popularity of Fooly Cooly and all this stuff.
Well, opening and ending credit songs usually to TV series are just songs that have been existed.
Well, that's true. That's the exception. But I mean, the entirety of the soundtrack in Fooly Cooly is the Pillows.
There really
stuff.
wasn't. Yeah, I got you.
There's no opening. There's only a closing in Fooly Cooly. What's interesting?
Which was boring.
Oh, well, yeah. The ending isn't. The closing credits aren't great or anything.
Scap. It's in Japanese, so I can't even read it. Anyways.
Although one thing that's interesting about
Except for
that
production
is
IG.
if you wait to the end of the credits, after the credits in the first 5 episodes, there's just a single 2-second shot of Haruko's Vespa parked outside
Yeah, I've seen
of their bakery. But at the end of the 6th episode, instead of that, it's a shot of Haruko's Vespa driving out into space. So it just goes out there, and that's the last
E.T.
shot
go
of
home.
the.
There you go.
Yes, it's a ET reference. We've gone from Ava to Lupin.
You gotta have every reference, all the references.
All the references.
So this somehow relates to Pikmin.
Well, I mean, things come out of... He picks them out of the ground. He picks them out of his head. Picking things out of things.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Oh yeah, the other reason I like The Father is when they were playing the war game in the grass, and he was all Nazi.
That was awesome.
that was pretty cool. So yes, I basically, for me personally, I don't know about you guys, what's your personal favorite episodes? Mine is episode 6 because it just brings everything to a climax and gives great resolution to everything. So I love episode 6.
I would agree 6, just because seeing the whole pirating thing happen, they fought. I didn't expect it, and it was epic. So I mean, everybody was freaking out on the ground, what the heck is going on?
Exactly.
I don't know. That's a tough question.
Well, you said you like the first 3 better, right?
It's kind of. I don't even know if I should say I like the first 3 better. Like I said, it was decent, so it's hard to say when it's something. It's yeah, I'm glad I watched it. There's stuff I could gain from this, and the fact that I pulled stuff. It's yes, this was definitely worth watching. It's an experience. It's it may not be your favorite, but picking out stuff obviously we've had this huge conversation, and I've actually gone into depth with it. It's got a lot of depth to it. This series has a lot
Going
to
on
it,
underneath,
which
yeah.
is good, and I like that. That's perfect, and that's why I guess it's more of a respect for it. I don't diss it. It's more of I respect it, but it's not my thing. But it totally has some really cool concepts. I just don't know if I care for the way it was executed sometime a little bit. I mean, story, the way it played out was fine. It's just like I said, maybe it's a little too over the top. And I don't do well with over the top stuff unless it's all of us in a group or people have been, I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, there's certain shows or movies, me as a film student, like...
You have to watch in an audience.
Exactly. Well, not even like that. Like, for example, I've talked to you about this before, like, Citizen Kane, critically acclaimed as the best movie ever. I don't think it's the best movie ever myself. Like, I like a lot of movies more than I like Citizen Kane, but I have to look at it from a craft perspective and be like, okay, this is a great movie because of all these things, and it does great things with story and camera work and lighting.
That's what I do, and that's what this is.
Yeah, and you as an animator, I mean, you have to watch this show and be like, oh my gosh, this animation is gorgeous.
Oh,
like,
it's
the
great.
Show is
very smooth, fluid. Like,
top quality
it's not my
stuff.
favorite, and like, I would take, I'd probably pick something out. I don't know what I'd pick. Like Korra, I like the animation Korra. That's fantastic. Some of those fight scenes.
Yeah.
It's good bacon.
Oh yeah, very good bacon, sizzling.
Also, one quick thing I just want to mention at the very end of episode 6 of note is that when Naota's talking about Mamimi, and how she left to be a photographer and all that, apparently her last words to him were like, "So long, Naota," or something like that. So she stops calling
recognized him.
So yeah, she stopped calling him
Moved
Taku,
on.
and she sort of moved on.
And the
with her
final
life.
point we will make about this fun little show is the fact that they tried to do Third Impact, but they failed at doing it.
Just close.
So Medical Mechanical was Third Impact. Is that what you're trying
it
to
was
say?
trying because there was a
It was just
building
mass.
flying up, but no one died. No one dies.
Nobody.
While in Ava,
Well-
everybody died. There was a consequence.
There was, except
There
for
were no
them.
consequences. No consequences in this Fooly Cooly. No consequences.
Well,
That's a Fooly Cooly.
I mean, the guy just he's all shriveled up, and we brought him back with water. In Ava, people died.
And they stayed dead.
yeah,
They
well,
didn't come back.
Okay, if you're really going to compare it, like Ava is
Death.
super serious, whereas Fooly Cooly is way on the other side.
I don't know.
You know,
Pen makes me pretty happy.
Was awesome.
He's a penguin. That's not very serious.
and
Alex.
he walks.
Yeah.
it's all in Pen.
And he lives in a refrigerator.
was
And
Pen?
it has a recliner and a little lamp.
I wonder
inside.
was Pen like one of like a secret angel that no one knew
No,
about?
that's nonsense. Obviously, you haven't watched the show
I was gonna
enough.
say.
So a human can be one, but a penguin, no way.
Oh, he's criticizing now. He's not saying Karu can be an angel. Okay, we'll
Challenge
have to save
accepted.
this
For next time.
Yes.
next fall.
I'll get
Be ready.
I'll get Jeremy on here with me because I know
Oh.
he'll defend me in the,
But
in
you
the
no,
Ava
no, no, no.
bashing.
You guys, we're gonna have a policy for the Ava podcast unless you watch every single episode and we could do the episode and then the Ava. Because I'll admit, the end of Evangelion, it can use some bashing.
Yeah. So I'd say if you just watch the normal series as a whole.
Okay. All right,
go with that.
but this is not the Ava podcast
Not
yet.
Yet.
Yes, not yet.
Yet.
This is the Fooly Cooly podcast. So, what's your guys' I guess overall thoughts about the show? You've sort of said it, Matt.
It's decent. It's worth seeing, but it didn't light my world on fire. But it might light yours.
Yeah, Kenneth.
It was funny. I liked it, and it was very well done.
All right, and obviously with me, I had a lot to say.
My favorite anime.
It's I'd say it's probably my top 5 anime TV shows.
On the Citadel.
Why on the Citadel?
It's your favorite anime on the Citadel.
I'm confused.
Anyways, carrying on. Nobody got my joke.
Unless is that a Mass Effect reference?
Yes, it was.
Okay, that's what I
Thank
thought
you.
it was. Alex's favorite anime. Yes, it's my favorite anime, Matt.
You should see their faces.
But
I
no.
don't know. You talk about this show quite a bit. I'm just curious what those other 4 are. I'll have to learn those in the next 3 years of
I
college.
posted it on JCon. Fun
Yeah.
fact.
I know.
I don't know how accurate those are, but
I don't think
anyways,
they are.
basically, I think Fooly Cooly is a.
You don't know what you're talking
it's
about.
not a show I would recommend to like everyone because it's obviously
Everyone.
It's excuse me, Matt.
Sorry, am I interrupting?
Perhaps.
Am I delaying the end of this podcast?
Yes, and we've already going over like an hour and a half.
Oh,
so
that's
we should probably
great.
wrap it up. But the
We
point,
should keep going.
The point,
Forever.
24 hours.
Oh, we should have
24-hour
24
No
podcast.
one would even know we're in this room.
They won't. They'll stop in and be
Although
like,
going to the bathroom might become a problem.
problem is I don't think Logic can do like more than 2 hours, so that would be a problem. But
We would
basically,
have to stop it and then keep recording and
segment
then,
it.
and segment it. But we, during those 5 minutes, we would have to, cut and stuff. We'd have to, add those back in.
And use the bathroom.
there you go. But
Okay, continue. Please continue.
why, thank you, Matt.
You're the host.
Indeed. But basically, for me, Fooly Cooly, Fooly Cooly is it's got great animation, it's got humor, it's got action, it's got these moments of craziness and insanity, and it's got these moments where it's very serious and very dramatic.
A plus.
Thank you. So yes, no, it's not the greatest show ever. It's not a show for everyone because it's so
You said
random.
that? Whoa, you said that?
Yes.
Whoa, let's hear that again, folks.
When did I ever claim it was the best show ever?
I don't know.
implied.
Implied.
But
Lied.
because I don't know. Once again, for me, like
Foreshadowing is what we wanted to use here.
Fooly Cooly is a show that, like, when I watched it the first time, like, I think when you watch it the first time, maybe you guys can attest to this, like, there's just so much going on. There's so much animation and information and dialogue and everything.
Information overload.
Exactly. Like, you just sort of experience for face value of what it is. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is good. Not great. Sort of like Matt. Like,
See where
I
it
thought
goes.
Good. But then when I rewatched it the second time, I sort of was analyzing it and found all this stuff about the coming of age story, and that really, I don't know, resonated. That's what I was looking for. Resonated with me since I'm like interested in storytelling and all this stuff, and having all these deep themes and
You're not
all
a
this
film
stuff.
major.
Oh no, definitely not. And just all the depth and the basically how the entire show is this big coming of age story, and how it's like this awesome show, that's almost like a music video at times instead of being like a normal show. And it's so dense and packed in, and so much is packed into these 6 episodes. And it's an extremely short show, yet it accomplishes everything it really sets out to do within those 6 episodes. And I think that's really admirable of them. So great show. Definitely check it out if you love anime and animation and all that good stuff. So this has been our special episode of Shredded Cels. Hopefully we'll do more of these Shredded Cels specials in the future whenever we want to do a one-off thing. Maybe that can be your guys' Ava podcast. I think that would be interesting.
I second that.
Very cool.
Oh, we'd have to do it separate. We'd also have to do the do a comparison of the TV series. Then we have to do the end of Ava, and then obviously the new Rebuild films.
Man,
Yeah.
So this is just like a whole new podcast, like network.
No, we're not going to do a whole Ava
We'll call ourselves Nerf.
podcast.
Nerf. The Nerf podcast.
We'll be the Nerf podcast.
All right. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, you should definitely subscribe to us on iTunes. Give us some ratings and reviews, hopefully positive. But if not, that's okay.
If you hate Alex, let us know.
If you hate Matt, let me know so I can kick
It's
him off
okay.
this podcast.
Kenneth's
and
okay.
Kenneth's great.
Kenneth's great. Yeah,
Exactly.
he's cool.
Thanks, guys.
No one criticizes Kenneth.
But everyone hates Alex.
And you can email us at techheadsou, or no, that's...
Oh, we don't know.
Nope. I'm not looking at my notes. This is
You
bad.
can contact us at
Well, you can find us on Twitter at techheadsou. That's what I meant to say. You can email us at techheads@avwproductions.com. You can like us on Facebook. We're techheads. You can watch all of our shows. We're on YouTube, AVW Media. We're on Vimeo as well. We've got all sorts of cool stuff going on. Next week, we're going to be recording our season finale episode of Shredded Cels. It's going to be episode 9. It's going to be all sorts of crazy stuff. It's going to be awesome. And thank you guys very much for joining me. Do you have any final comments? Any thank yous for the listeners?
Fooly Cooly, the second Ava.
Inception. Oh.
Be careful at home. Sharp objects hurt.
All right.
And watch out for crazy chicks that become attached to you.
And run you over with Vespas.
Yes, don't get infected by the Fooly Cooly disease. That's what it is.
And let us know if you see a guitar that's a chainsaw and a gun. I'd totally buy one.
Definitely.
Or if you just see a guy flying around, looks like a red Super Saiyan hitting people with guitars.
Exactly. So this has been a Shredded Cels special about Fooly Cooly. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week.
It was
Signing
very Fooly Cooly.
This product is copyright AVW Productions 2020.